Is it bad that I just kind of want the fantasy year over? This has hardly been my season, and I may be eternal, but I'm also exhausted. Oh no, that won't be happening for sure. I don't give up. Ever. I gotta be 0-13, and I try just as hard to get that last win. Well, I hope today's show doesn't suck, and maybe has the usual suspects on it. Maybe.
Are you ready?
I'm just Jim. Welcome to episode 34 of the Fantasy Football Monsters. I'm the vampire who's running out of clever things to say here by murder. I'm also running out of ways to insult this guy, Jimmy.
This honestly is just sad to watch. Just a beat up old vampire phoning it in like it's a pizza order.
You still call in pizza orders? Hell, you still call in anything? Anyway, back from his hiatus is Morty.
I caught last week's show. That Sydney seemed like he was fun to work with. I would love a chance to work with him myself. I mean, knowing what you know, do you think that's actually ever gonna happen? No, but I can dream, can't I?
Maybe if I ever get any of my vacation approved, he can swap for me. It's too weird having Sydney and I both on. If he were better at constructing proper sentences, you would have a hard time telling us apart vocally.
So, I know you're sad and all, but I think I have a topic that will brighten your day right up. Taysom Hill.
Well, that does indeed cheer me up. He isn't good every week, but he's good some weeks, and when he's good, he's great. And this last weekend, he was fucking fantastic.
But it's hard to know when he's going to go off.
Yes. So, with that in mind, I know we're not in draft season, but stick this away in your knowledge bank for next year. We're going to discuss somewhere Taysom Hill is amazing. Best ball drafts.
I was wondering when this was going to come up, since through 11 weeks, you have been eliminated in exactly one of your 13 Fantasy Cares Eliminators. It's nice to have something a little happier and a little more strategic to talk about. So, mathematically, you're having one of the better seasons there.
Damn straight. At 12 out of 13, there's no one with 5 or more leagues who has a better alive percentage than I do.
Well, it was close. Kevin Sesney is alive in 22 of 24.
That's a 91.6 survival percentage, but my 92.3 is better. Ha ha! Though seriously, even with a smaller percentage, having that percentage with that many leagues is still amazing. Respect.
So, what nuggets of wisdom have you been able to extract from this?
Well, this kind of league is very unique. It is both best ball and guillotine, and there are no waivers or trades. Whatever you draft is what you have. The scoring was also funky as hell.
Well, I know you drafted back in May. But what happens if the player ends up not making the team or getting hurt?
Tough. I had this happen a few times. It sucks, but you do the best you can with the info you have.
So, what style of strategy should one use in this most unusual of formats?
It certainly depends a lot on what your roster slots are. For the leagues this year, it was 8 super flex slots. You could literally play whatever your best 8 players were, regardless of their position, which certainly helped a lot, though it's not the norm. But here are the biggest tips I will give people. Number 1, first and foremost, you must track your buys when drafting. In a normal league, if a player is on bye, you can hit the waiver wire to fill it in for a week. Not here. And in a normal league, if you have a bad week, you take the L. Here, if you take the L, you take the seat. People virtually eliminated themselves during these bye weeks because they didn't plan properly.
Well,
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense.
Now, for this format, if there was a starting QB available, I took them every single time. For several reasons. First, 10 of the top 11 scores have been quarterbacks, with only Saquon in there as well. Secondly, more than any other position, a QB gives you consistency. If they're starting, they're almost always in for every snap, and they don't ever just not get the ball or not get thrown to. And as we'll discuss, consistency is a very important thing, but it's not the only thing. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a few exceptions to this rule. In one, I was a 10th pick, which meant my next pick after that was going to be number 27. I took Kyler at 10, but by the time it got back to me, 20 QBs were gone. Jamar Chase was still on the board, and I just could not resist. It was him or Cousins. But just as a note, my next two picks after that were Bryce Young and Russell Wilson. I still feel it was very important to have starting QBs. In another league, I was 5th pick and took Mahomes in the 1st and Daniel Jones in the 2nd. When I got back for my 3rd, 31 QBs were off the board. I wasn't taking Jacoby Brissett, so Kieran Williams at pick 50 overall felt pretty good. That said, my next pick, I went ahead and grabbed Drake May, which sort of leads me into another thing to think about.
Whoa! Slow down there, homie. I just want to make sure that the people at home understand that this particular draft style was because it was 8 superflex slots. And this is not what you would likely do in a more traditional roster.
From here, it was a matter of trying to take a few good players who could mostly be the core of my team. Consistency. Aaron Jones got drafted a lot here. Lots of good, solid RBs and wide receivers. This league gave extra points to kickers and even punters and coaches, but for me, I needed consistency. Outside of one tech issue, I never drafted another position other than running back or wide receiver until the 9th round when I took a tight end in one of them. Once you have built out a consistent core, that's when you start looking at explosive players. The players who might not hit for you every week, but when they do, it's golden. Even though I never actually got him, Taysom Hill is the perfect example. And deep threats. Those players who you just never know.
Interesting. Did you go bargain hunting?
Of course I did. While it hasn't worked out the way I had planned, everyone was fading Mike Williams, who was obviously a really dangerous wide receiver. He wasn't likely to play in the first few weeks, I figured, but if I could survive in the beginning, he would be a great bargain later. Now, I'm still hoping that Pittsburgh uses him well, unlike this last weekend's goose egg.
What else?
Except for the super splashy ones, I mostly avoided rookies. I wanted to have some idea what I was getting. Many of my teams ended up with none. They can be super boom or bust, and you only have 16 slots. Half of your people need to play weekly, and there are going to be buys and injuries that really hurt you. I also ended up taking at least one kicker, if not 2 or 3 late. The additional scoring sort of put them into the boom or bust category. And with the scoring being exceptionally weird, rewarding extra points for missed field goals and missed extra points, they served as a lot of those boom players. I picked up Boswell in 3 of them, and I'm still alive in 2 of the 3.
Goodness. In the Matt Harmon one, you are no longer active. I see you got Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, and Hollywood Brown within the first 7 picks. That certainly did not contribute to you staying alive.
There definitely is a luck factor as well. More skill than luck, but some luck.
But what about punters and coaches?
Honestly, they were a trap. A coach could get at most 10 points for losing a game. Average scores have been around 130 or so points with 8 positions. If your coach is scoring, there's a decent chance you're in trouble. Plus, with it being ones who lost, you had to be careful to pick ones who would lose, but not lose their job. Punters just got points based on their average, and it usually was less than 10. I did draft 3 punters, but there was a short period where the scoring on punters wasn't completely clear, and while I was clearing it up, I was on the clock. They seemed like they might have been very Joe-like, but in the end, no.
I noticed you seem to not take too many of any one player. Was that intentional?
Yes. The last thing I wanted to do was draft 13 carbon copies of each other. That would just mean if I got unlucky in one league, I could potentially get unlucky in all my leagues and lose a ton of them at once. I wanted to protect against that. Mike Williams was a slight exception. I initially was drafting him in the 11th or 12th, but then started pushing him back more and more. But when I was seeing him in the 14th and in one case 15th round, I wasn't going to lay off.
Well, we'll keep an eye on things, and I think we should do a follow-up at the end of the season after you get knocked out of all of them.
We'll see. I'm expecting to get knocked out of at least 1 a week from here. But even if I do, I'd still win 6 of them. Maybe I lose 2 the last week. I'd be happy with 5.
Oh, I bet you would, but you're only in first place in 2 of the 12, so I think that's a bit optimistic. I don't even think you'll win that much.
You want to bet? I win 3 or more, I win. If I win 1 or less, you win. We push if it's 2.
I think you're a bit too confident there, Snowflake. Calling winning 3 out of the initial 13 is fucking bold. I'm in.
Gentlemen, I have recorded this as an official bet. What shall the wager be?
Humiliation! Ha ha!
That we agree on. We'll figure out the stakes off air, but it's probably going to involve an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Won't matter. Anyway, we seriously will follow up on this later and give an analysis of what went right and what went wrong with each one and what we can learn. What did we screw up and what ended up being pure genius?
Or dumb luck.
So, moving on, I've noticed the injuries seem to be cooling down, at least a little bit now.
Yeah, they still happen, but don't seem to be as crazy as they were earlier in the season. Plus, a couple of the bigger names that have been out a while are finally coming back.
Namely Mike Evans and Isaiah Pacheco.
That Pacheco one is a bit concerning. I got Hunt in quite a few leagues, and he's been very good for me. I'm concerned he's going to get the Jordan Mason treatment. Only Isaiah Pacheco is no CMC, and Jordan Mason is no Kareem Hunt. So, maybe?
Are you planning on playing him in any of the leagues this weekend?
This becomes one of those very interesting decisions. I don't think Pacheco will come back and immediately take over, at least not week 12. I think we'll see more of a split backfield this weekend, which isn't that great for anyone. But against the Panthers, I would think that they'll get to a grindy run game. But who knows? The Panthers are equally bad against the run and the pass. It will really depend on my options. I'm going to expect that he will get roughly half of what he's been getting. If that's good enough, sure.
Yeah, but if that's good enough, there's a good chance you aren't winning.
Speaking of the Chiefs, they're no longer unbeaten. Pop the champagne in Miami!
We know. You picked the Bills by 10, and they won by 9. You want a fucking cookie? Shut up! He's not here this week. Don't be so uptight. I assure you, if they sue you, we are finally doing something right. We can say cookie again. See? Cookie? Monster. Cookie? Monster. Cookie? Monster. Cookie? Monster. Cookie? Monster. Cookie?
Whatever. Clearly this week is devolving into garbage too. So I will end it. For Morty and my murder, I'm Jimmy, reminding you the Cowboys are fucking terrible this year. Ha ha!